Voters across Russia's 11 time zones are heading to the polls for the second day in the country's presidential election, with incumbent President Vladimir Putin being all but certain to secure his fifth term. In the meantime, Moscow accused Ukraine of stepping up attacks and says that they aim to derail Russian voting. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
Some 27 million Russians cast their ballots on the first day of presidential election, with a countrywide turnout exceeding 30%, according to the Central Election Commission. Several people have been detained over acts of vandalism when paint was poured into ballot boxes and arson attacks. Criminal cases have been opened, and authorities say those attacks were instigated from abroad. They also say that the number of spoiled ballots is not significant. In the meantime, Moscow accused Ukraine of stepping up attacks against civilian targets in Russia, with voting carried out in Belgorod region as air raid sirens were going on and off throughout the day. President Putin said the purpose of those attacks was to disrupt the presidential election. However, he said Kyiv will not be able to prevent the process of expressing people's will. He said that Russian air defense systems have repelled over 95% of Kyiv's attacks. Moscow also accused Ukraine of attempting to cross the Russian border using more than 2,500 personnel, 35 tanks and about 40 armored vehicles over the past days. Those attempts have failed. Voting will continue throughout the weekend. Dasha Chernyshova reported in Moscow for DD India.
The UN Security Council members condemned Russian efforts to conduct its presidential election in Ukraine-controlled areas on Friday. In a show of unity, 56 UN ambassadors stood by Ukraine's ambassador to the UN, Sergei Kilistisia. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin accused Ukraine of trying to disrupt Russian presidential election and said that Moscow would punish Kyiv for its latest attacks. The first of 3 days of voting was marked by disruptions, including dye being poured into ballot boxes and cyber attacks. During a St. Patrick's Day luncheon at the U.S. Capitol on Friday, U.S. President Joe Biden and Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar pledged unwavering support for Ukraine.
People around the world, they can always count on Ireland and the United States to be on their side, not just for hope, but to help them on their march forward. We see this in our support of Ukraine and the people in the face of Putin's vicious onslaught against Ukraine. America stands up for freedom, and we bow down to no one in the world.
A Russian ballistic missile attack hit a residential area in Ukraine's Black Sea port city of Odessa on Friday, killing at least 20 people. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia would receive a fair response from Ukrainian forces for the strike.
In Odessa, the rescue operation and provision of aid is still underway following the Russian missile strike. It was a very wild strike. Among those killed and injured are paramedics, rescuers from emergency services. Our defense forces will certainly do everything to ensure that the Russian killers feel our fair response.
In a bid to showcase European unity, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron and Polish counterpart Donald Tusk in Berlin on Friday. Showing support to Ukraine during the joint press conference, German Chancellor asserted on acquiring more weapons for the conflict-hit country. This recent meeting comes after last month's Franco-German spat in a summit in Paris, where French President Emmanuel Macron refused to rule out deploying Western troops to Ukraine, triggering a dressing down from Scholz. Friday's tripartite meeting was conducted to work on tensions between the allies. The European disagreement comes as U.S. support for Ukraine is also weakening.
Wir haben uns heute auf einige Schwerpunkte verständigt.
We have agreed on a few main issues, and among others, we will acquire even more weapons for Ukraine, in fact on the entire world market. We will use windfall profits from Russian assets which are frozen in Europe to fund the purchase of weapons for Ukraine.
Durch Zusammenarbeit mit Partnern in der Ukraine.
Let's get you updates on Israel-Hamas conflict now. Israel has announced plans to send a delegation to Qatar following Hamas's concessions in ceasefire negotiations, signaling the closest approach to a deal in recent weeks. Under intensified diplomatic pressure, including threats from Qatar and Egypt, Hamas has softened its stance, stepping back from its demands for a permanent ceasefire agreement prior to the negotiations. Meanwhile, despite the diplomatic progress, Israel has approved its plan for a military offensive in Rafah. Global allies have urged Netanyahu to hold off attacking Rafah, featuring mass civilian casualties. But Israel says it is one of the last strongholds of Hamas, whom it pledged to eliminate, and that residents will be evacuated.
We can't support a major offensive in Rafah that doesn't also include a credible, achievable, executable plan to take care for the safety and security of the more than 1 million Gazans that are seeking refuge in Rafah. To move in right now in a major way without a proper accounting for all those people would, as we've said, be a disaster. And so we're going to keep talking to the Israelis about this. Again, we if they've got that plan, we certainly would welcome the opportunity to see it.
United Nations spokesman Stephen Dujarric has said that the consequences of an Israeli ground operation in Rafah would be catastrophic for the people of Gaza and the humanitarian situation.
I think the consequences of a ground operation in Rafah in the current circumstances would be catastrophic for the people of Gaza, for the Palestinians. It would be catastrophic for the humanitarian situation. It would be catastrophic all around. We very much hope that all of this can be avoided. We understand negotiations are still going on, and we continue to hope that we will the parties will find a way to a ceasefire to ensure the greater humanitarian access, to ensure the release of all the hostages held by Hamas and others in Gaza, and frankly to open up a way forward for the people of Palestine and the people of Israel.
The first ship towing a barge of humanitarian aid to Gaza has unloaded supplies onto the shore. The ship transporting humanitarian aid from the World Central Kitchen Organization, led by the UAE, arrived in Gaza's maritime space on Friday. The ship contained 130 pallets of humanitarian equipment and 115 tons of food and water that were transferred to 12 WCK trucks, which will distribute them to northern Gaza. The ship is in a test run for a new aid route by sea from Cyprus into Gaza. If this sea mission is deemed a success, other aid ships will likely follow as part of an international effort to get more aid into Gaza. The ships would use a newly opened sea route to travel directly to the region. One of the cases of former U.S. President Donald Trump is in the spotlight after a judge ruled the prosecution's lead lawyer needs to leave the case. It comes after an affair came to light between the lawyer and district attorney, something Trump's team argued was of a conflict of interest. Nick Harper gets us more from Washington.
Well, the judge's decision made it clear that this affair has not helped the prosecution's case. Judge Scott McAfee ruled on Friday that there is now a significant appearance of impropriety that infects the prosecution team. It follows the disclosure that Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis had a romantic relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, the very man she'd appointed to lead the case. The judge said that was a tremendous lapse in judgment. And now prosecutors need to make, he says, proportional efforts to cure it. As such, Willis can remain on the case, but only if she fires Wade. Even so, Donald Trump's team criticised the judge's ruling. They had argued the relationship posed a conflict of interest, and they're seeking to get the charges dismissed. The judge said he found no conflict of interest. The pair maintain they started their relationship after Wade was appointed, rather than the other way around, and therefore his appointment was not, they say, as a result of their romance. Other Trump cases in New York and Florida have also hit roadblocks this week. Manhattan prosecutors, in his hush money payment case, say they support delaying the start of the trial, which is scheduled to get underway on March the 25th. While in Florida, the judge has rejected Trump's request to dismiss the charges against him. That case relates to classified documents Trump kept after leaving office. Trump is trying to delay the cases as much as possible to try and push them back beyond November's presidential election, with the apparent tactic of hoping that if he's re-elected, he'll be able to get the charges against him dismissed. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Exposing North Korea's human rights exploitation by their leader Kim Jong-un, the two North Korean defectors narrated their heart-shaped tale at a United Nations event in Geneva on Friday. During their speech, they described their experience as hell and advocated for a strengthened United Nations mandate to investigate and document them. The defectors came to the UN, where diplomats say the Human Rights Council will consider an EU-led motion to boost scrutiny by providing an update to a landmark 2014 report that found grave abuses constituting crimes against humanity. The situation is deteriorating in Haitian capital as heavily armed gangs have taken over much of the capital in Haiti. There are roadblocks, burning debris and crash blocking roads around the city. Shipping containers were placed to block access to large gantry cranes at the port facility. The runway at Port-au-Prince airport was completely empty. Widespread killings have been reported, along with kidnappings and sexual violence. According to UN estimates, more than 360,000 people are internally displaced in Haiti. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Friday that most of the parties for Haiti's Transition Council have named their representatives, but a couple still are yet to do so. An international force set to be led by Kenya to tackle the spiraling violence in Haiti was moving forward but faced stumbling blocks. While Nairobi announced earlier this week that it was pausing the deployment and would reevaluate once a new Haitian government was in place. India is monitoring the situation. It has established a control room and issued helpline numbers for the Indian community. Meanwhile, steps such as withdrawal of UN officials and reducing staff in the Canadian embassy have further raised concerns over the future of international support and political stability in Haiti.
This is the site of a trade market near the Dominican border where Haitians flocked to stock up commodities amid the worsening humanitarian crisis in Haiti. The market is only open for 2 days a week. Haiti is struggling to resolve a long-running political and humanitarian crisis after heavily armed gangs have taken over much of the capital. In the midst of escalating violence in Haiti, U.S. lawmakers are standing firm on their decision to withhold millions of dollars in funding, a move that could further hinder efforts to stabilize the Caribbean nation. The Office of UN Secretary General has also expressed concern about the funding.
Yesterday, the World Food Program was able to provide hot meals to about 13,000 displaced people. But the World Food Program tells us that this service in Port-au-Prince might be shut down next week if new funding is not secured.
Meanwhile, a powerful gang leader in Haiti has issued a threatening message aimed at political leaders who would participate in a planned transition council as fires broke out amid a fresh surge of violence in the Caribbean nation's capital. Steps like withdrawal of UN officials and reducing staff in the Canadian embassy in Haiti have raised concerns about the future of international support for Haiti. Meanwhile, India is monitoring the situation with its agencies and establishing a control room and issuing helpline numbers.
Our embassy in Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic, which has the accreditation for Haiti, has also established a control room, has also established helplines. There are some 50 to 80 Indian community members there. The embassy is in touch with all of them. We are monitoring the situation. As you know, there is a crisis in Haiti, and if required, we will evacuate. We are ready to evacuate, and if required, we will do that.
The proposal to install new leadership in Haiti has not been successful yet, as some political parties rejected the plan to create a presidential council that would manage the transition. But this seems necessary to steer the country out of its current crisis.
And now we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world today. Focusing on the subject of war and its contradictions, giant sculptures were displayed for Spain's Fallas Festival, where they will be set alight in the port city of Valencia on Tuesday. The central sculpture placed near City Hall features two doves fighting over an olive branch, exposing the contradiction that in order to have peace, there must be war. Esquif, the artist who designed the piece, said. BTS star V released the music video for his latest solo track, Friends. According to the press release, the music video shows the 28-year-old reliving the same day twice as he experiences love from two different perspectives.
오늘 한 사람 한 사람이 의미 있는 존재로서 서로 존중하고
At least 3 people were killed and many were injured as a tornado ripped through the U.S. states of Indiana and Ohio, leveling homes and businesses in its path. 3 deaths were reported in Ohio's Logan County after the tornado touched down in a rural area in the early evening. Germany agreed to a new European Union law to cut packaging waste and ban single-use plastics in Brussels on Friday. The law aims to help the German packaging industry, the labeling industry, and all 27 EU members to make significant progress in using reusable packaging and dealing with plastic waste. You're watching DD India Live. We're heading for a short break. But after the break, Bhutanese Prime Minister Tshering Togbe is on a visit to India. He held talks with President of India and also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi. On this National Vaccination Day, let us pledge to protect lives through vaccination. Defending champions Manchester City will play record winners Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinals.
We are taking a close look at the phenomenon of military bases, military infrastructure and military facilities in the maritime domain and what they do to enhance a country's naval power.
We are the ones who are, assuring them that we will help each and every smaller country, whether it is you want infrastructure from us, we will go and provide it. You want ships, you want boats, or you want any kind of help, a bigger nation is there to help you out.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live. Committed for its maritime security, the Indian Navy has once again responded to another hijacking bid off the Somali coast. Indian Navy's deployed a warship responding to a piracy attack on MV Abdullah, a Bangladeshi flagged vessel that was en route from Mozambique to the United Arab Emirates. As soon as the Indian Navy was informed about the piracy attempt, a long-range patrol aircraft was deployed to locate the ship. The mission deployed warship on maritime security operations, which had also been diverted, intercepted the hijacked MV on the morning of 14th March. The safety of MV's crew held hostage by the armed pirates was ascertained, and the warship continued to maintain in close vicinity of the MV till its arrival in the territorial waters of Somalia. As the poll season heats up in India, the Election Commission is set to announce the schedule for the country's general elections today, heralding the country's biggest festival of democracy. DD India's Mihir Mekhuri gets us more.
In the world's largest democracy, a nation brimming with vibrant cultures and traditions, anticipation surges as India readies itself for the forthcoming general elections. Every 5 years, millions of Indians exercise their fundamental right to vote. This time to elect members to the 18th Lok Sabha, the lower house of the Indian Parliament. Saturday will witness the Election Commission of India unveiling the schedule for the Lok Sabha polls, representing a pivotal moment in the democratic process. First, let's take a closer look at India's 543 parliamentary constituencies are elected directly by eligible voters. A majority of at least 272 seats in the Lok Sabha is required to form a government. India's northern Indian state of Uttar Pradesh has the maximum number of Lok Sabha constituencies, 80. Ladakh is India's largest Lok Sabha constituency by area, while Delhi's Chandni Chowk is the smallest. Now let's take an overview of the voting and counting process. India's democratic system is founded on universal adult suffrage. India allows citizens over 18 to vote regardless of caste, creed, religion or gender. India boasts the world's largest electorate with 960 million registered for the upcoming general elections. Electoral rolls are prepared by official enumerators appointed by the Election Commission. 5 million plus polling personnel and civil police forces form the task force for conducting countrywide general elections. Polling occurs on varying days across constituencies to uphold law and order and ensure voting fairness. EVM voting at polling stations open for a minimum of 8 hours on election day. Voters, including members of the armed forces, are permitted to vote by post. Election Commission appoints observers to ensure fair campaigns and voter freedom. Special election expenditure observers monitor campaign spending. Votes are counted under the supervision of the returning officers. Winning candidate with most votes is declared winner by the returning officer. With elections slated to take place sometime around April-May 2024, the Bharatiya Janata Party, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, aims to secure a third consecutive term in power, having secured a majority in 2014 and 2019. Meanwhile, the India Alliance, led by the Indian National Congress, faces uncertainty as their partners struggle to reach a consensus on seat sharing. Mihir Maikuri, DD India.
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Tshering Togbe, met India's President Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Friday. He also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at Rajghat in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi graciously accepted the invitation from Tshering Togbe to visit Bhutan next week. Today is National Vaccination Day. We come together to celebrate the power of immunization in safeguarding public health. This day serves as a reminder of the importance of vaccination in preventing diseases and promoting well-being for individuals and communities worldwide. Join us as we unite in this effort to protect lives through vaccination. We get to more in this report.
Vaccination is a powerful way to prevent serious diseases and is supported by the World Health Organization. This day serves as a reminder of how vaccinations improve public health, lengthen life expectancy and benefit our society. Each year on March 16th, we celebrate the National Vaccination Day, officially known as National Immunization Day, which is commemorated to emphasize the significance of vaccination to the whole country. Since the first National Vaccination Day in 1995 to eradicate polio, India has made great strides in immunizing its population against infectious diseases. New and increasingly sophisticated vaccines have become available in the last decade to provide protection against a growing number of diseases such as polio, pneumonia, diarrhea, cervical cancer, and hepatitis B containing vaccines. In addition, cholera, mumps, seasonal influenza and typhoid vaccines have also been administered widely. During the challenging times of the COVID-19 pandemic, India's vaccines and its diplomacy shone brightly. By prioritizing the needs of the most vulnerable and marginalized communities, India's generosity and commitment to ensuring vaccine equity not only saved lives but also won hearts by aiding in global immunization efforts.
जब कोरोना के समय दुनिया को जरूरत थी तो फार्मेसी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड के नाते भारत ने 150 से ज्यादा देशों को दवाइयां उपलब्ध कराई.
The other newer vaccines include inactivated polio vaccine, rotavirus vaccine, measles rubella vaccine, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, tetanus and adult diphtheria vaccine. The development of vaccinations is regarded as one of the greatest achievements in human history. On this National Vaccination Day, let us salute India's contribution to public health and global solidarity. Through collaborative efforts between government agencies, healthcare professionals and communities, we can achieve herd immunity and pave the way for a healthier, safer future for all. Lipakshi Khurana, DD India.
All right, let's talk of sports now. UEFA Champions League quarterfinals draws are out. Defending champions Manchester City will play record winners Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinals, while Barcelona will take on Paris Saint-Germain after the draw was held at UEFA's headquarters on Friday. Arsenal returned to the quarterfinals for the first time in 14 years, and they play Bayern Munich, which will give the German club's star striker Harry Kane, who has scored 36 goals this season, another crack at his former North London rivals. Paris Saint-Germain, who are seeking their first Champions League title, will take on Barcelona, while Atletico Madrid face Bundesliga side Borussia Dortmund, which means all the three Spanish teams have the opportunity to reach the semi-finals. That's it in this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.